I was truly hoping I'd be able to be on the track with the Mazda sooner rather than later. But after doing the engine swap and taking the car out for some test drives, it appeared that I had an issue with oil starvation. I could drive the car at lower RPMs and the oil pressure would stay nice and high in the oil pressure gauge, but when I really pushed the engine, taking it up to near its red line, all of a sudden the oil pressure would drop like a rock and I'd have to pull over and let the engine sit for a while. To try to solve the problem, I bought a quart of Motor Medic engine oil flush, and ran it through the engine following the directions, doing 5 minutes, and it didn't fix the problem. So I did it a second time, and again, no luck, no change. It seemed to be a little better, but still any sort of sustained high RPM ended up with the pressure, oil pressure dropping. So what I ended up doing, taking it into the garage, putting it up on jack stands, and removing the oil pan and the windage tray. And looking down into the oil pan, it was obvious that the engine had sat for many years at the junkyard with oil in the sump, and that oil just turned to sludge. Alright, so underneath there you can see counterbalance crank probably was sitting in all that cruddy oil for a while. But I'm really hoping that we don't have any mess up in there. That's where the oil pickup comes in. This, I believe, is just a stop to keep some oil pump shaft, but I may want to take that out and see about cleaning it. Clean the gaskets off of here. There's a seal for the rear main, seal for the front main. We'll got replacements for those. So, time to do some cleaning. Here's the windage tray installed and the oil pickup installed, both of them thoroughly cleaned before they went back in. And there's no replaceable element or anything on the pickup, it's just got a filter screen. So I did clean everything, and the windage tray and the pickup were just fine. The oil pan has a seal at each end, and then it's also RTV'd around the majority of the flange. When I installed the pan, I pinched the rear seal, and it would not seal. Oil was leaking at higher RPMs. But the good thing was, when I took it out for the test drive and ran it to the high RPMs, the oil pressure stayed high, stayed up above 50 psi, and even when it was very hot, and it was just the leaking oil seal that was the problem. No oil starvation was apparent, so I have fixed the oil starvation. Now I just need to fix the oil seal. Here is the mostly clean oil pan. What I still need to do is to remove that one windage plate that's over the sump and clean out any of the leftover sludge. I've already gone through this once, flushed the engine, and just more of it has accumulated down in the sump, but I want to start with something very clean. The consistency of this sludge doesn't feel like particles, it just feels like a grease, a real nasty grease. What you're seeing from the RTV is stuff that got cleaned off of the flange. It was not anything that had been put into the engine. So what you're seeing here is the results of my first poor attempt at installing this seal. It got pinched between the rib of the engine block face and the oil pan surface and just hacked up this seal. So it's getting replaced now. The other seal was installed correctly, and I got no leaks from that end of the engine. It was only at the transmission end of the engine. Got flange clean of 99.5% of the RTV, and inside the pan pretty darn clean as well. Yeah, there's some residue, but that's all pretty hardened in there. The RTV down, that's where the seal goes, there and there. So we just run the RTV up to the edge. Hopefully it's on thick enough without being too thick. So the other thing going on is the seal is held in place in the groove where it needs to be, there and there. So now we just pray it stays there when we go to install the pan, which we'll do next. The pan is back on. I torqued to about 150 inch-pounds. In order to get this exhaust together, I put one side on, just a thread on there over the spring. I take the vice grips, I clamp it together, and then that allows me to get enough to grab the thread on this side.